Now that you've set up your package.json file and you've also downloaded Express, let's get started with building our Express application. Once you import Express into a JavaScript file, all you need to create the top-level Express application is this statement. The Express method creates an application instance that exposes methods that let you implement a set of base features such as a routing system so that you can create various routes for your app, the ability to incorporate middleware functions so that you can plug into the request and response streams to process, inject or extract data as needed. You also get the ability to render static HTML files and also bring in templating engines so that you can create dynamically rendered views. If the concept of dynamically rendered views is confusing, then don't worry. I'll be demonstrating this concept in one of the upcoming screencasts. Besides these base features, the application as instantiated by the Express method exposes base configurable settings for building full-blown applications with Express. And let's not forget that it also lets you instantiate a server instance, which is at the very core of any Node.js application, irrespective of whether you use a framework or not. So let's see how this base application is created. Here we have our server.js file which we created last time. I'll get rid of this console.log statement. And let's begin by creating a constant called Express, and I'll use a require statement to bring in the Express module like so. Node looks in the node_modules folder and accesses the Express folder, which is where npm had downloaded the framework. From within that folder, a file called index.js is loaded, which further loads in the Express framework into the constant that we have created here. When using the require statement, if a specific script file is not mentioned, then Node finds the index.js file, and that is precisely what happens here. So once we have the framework imported in, we'll create a constant called app, and we'll invoke the core Express method like so. This, as explained earlier, creates a base instance of an Express application. This is the top level application, and though it's self-sufficient, if you have to build simple applications, you can also create multiple applications and plug them into this top level instance. Essentially, this is the core into which everything plugs in. The app keyword now also exposes a number of methods that are essential for configuring how the application works. Interestingly enough, you can create a second constant here, perhaps called second app, and again set it to an instance of the Express method, and that creates another application instance. This second instance can have its own set of routes and can run simultaneously, though on its own separate port. Okay, for now, let's create a few sample routes. This will also demonstrate the fact that frameworks essentially simplify the process of building fundamental features such as a router. So I'll begin by accessing the app keyword, which contains our Express app instance, and we'll type .get. What we're doing here is creating a route that uses the HTTP GET method. Within the parentheses, type out a / within quotes like so. This means that we want to create a route handler for the root route. I'm sure this looks familiar since you've seen how a basic router can be built. A single / denotes the base or the root route. Next, we'll put a comma and we'll create an arrow function like so, and this is the function or the route handler that will be executed when the user requests the root route. You can see I've put 3 arguments within the callback. The REQ and RES stand for the request and the response objects, and I'm sure by now you understand that a route handler needs to listen in to the request stream and appropriately process and respond through the response object. The REQ and RES arguments here provide access to these streams. What you've probably not seen before is the next keyword. The interesting thing here is that Express allows us to create more than one route handler function for every single route. What this means is that here, for the root route for instance, I can have two callback functions declared like this. Here, we are creating a custom variable within the request object called greeting, and I've set it to a simple string value as hello. After this, we are calling next, which means that the control should now be passed on to the next handler function, if any, for this particular route. Without calling the next keyword, you won't be able to pass control to the next handler function. In the next handler function, we are simply sending back an HTML string to the user using the res.send method, and we can access the value of the req.greeting variable here. You'll see more of res.send method in just a moment. Now, this kind of a thing may seem like an odd thing to do. Why would you need to have more than one handler function for a single given route? Well, the reason it makes sense is in situations where you need to pre-process data before you serve back to the user. For instance, let's say a route needs to be protected by an authentication mechanism. The first route handler function can be used to ensure if the user is granted access or not, and only if so, should the next handler in line be allowed. You'll see such a thing a few videos down the line in this section. Now, multiple route handlers can also be put into an array like this, and this works equally as well. Of course, here in this example, we do not have multiple route handler functions. So why are we still using the next keyword? Well, to be honest, we don't really need the next keyword here, and this example will still work fine. But I've made it a habit of incorporating the next keyword should additional route handlers need to be brought in at a later stage, and as we will do here in a short while. So it's best to have this keyword in place. You can avoid it for now if you like, and your example should still work fine. Alright, our route and its handler is done. But as always, we need to instantiate a server instance and listen in on a port for the app to work and respond to an HTTP request. The app instance already provides us with a server instance, so we don't need to create an HTTP server here. What we do need though is to listen in on a port, and for that we'll type app.listen, where the first argument would be a port number. Let's use port number 3000 followed by a callback function where we'll just use a console log statement to output a string that says chatcat running on port 3000. And that's it. Hit save and NodeMon reloads your app. And now if I go into the browser and visit localhost on port 3000, you can see our h1 tag with the text HelloExpress. Now let me create another route handler of the type get like so, and we'll create a route called /dashboard, which throws another h1 tag with some text. The res.send is a convenient shorthand method to send and end the response all in one shot. You can optionally send in HTTP status codes too, but there is no need if you're sending in a simple HTML string like what we're doing here. Again, hit save and let's try this out in the browser. And it works as expected. Now, Express has built-in table of configurable settings as name-value pairs. We'll be using some of these in the upcoming lectures, but the interesting thing is that you can create your own set of name-value pairs. So rather than hard-coding the port number as 3000, we'll create one of these name-value pairs. To do that, you'll have to access the app instance by using the app keyword and use the set method like so to set a key called port and we'll set it to process.env.port or a static value of 3000. The process.env.port statement allows you to access an environment variable on the server instance called port. And usually in a cloud instance such as on Heroku, this is set to the available port instance. So if this variable is present, the key port would be set to that value, or else we'll default to our good old port 3000. Now once this is set, to obtain this value back in our listen method, we'll use the app.get method like so. Now again, you can use a simple variable declared using a let keyword to assign this as well, and I'm using app.set and app.get purely for demonstration purposes here. This feature though comes in handy if you want to set a value here and use it wherever you can access the app instance, such as across multiple modules and so on. Alright, so this is how we can easily create a simple top-level Express application. I'm sure you're finding this interesting so far because a framework like Express and its built-in methods can really cut down development time and speed up our work.